In yachting, precision is not a luxury. It is the difference between function and failure. Every weld, every joint, every engineered solution must perform, not just in theory, but at sea. Engineered Yacht Solutions delivers specialist welding, fabrication, and onboard engineering built for real-world conditions. This is craftsmanship shaped by experience, pressure, and exacting standards. Trusted by professionals who understand there is no margin for error. Engineered Yacht Solutions. Discover engineering without compromise. EYSwelding.com.
Dick Van Lent, welcome.
Rick. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. What a pleasure. We are at the Monte Carlo Bay Resort Hotel.
Correct.
What a wonderful venue. This is just stunning. I wish everybody that's watching this could see what we're seeing, because we're looking at the ocean with, 100 large yachts on the moorings out there. Yep.
Very close to 100.
And blue skies and the mountains over there to our one side and the Mediterranean Sea to the other. Life is good, Dick.
Yes, can't complain.
No, don't complain. Don't complain. So this is fun. We talk about the legacies of our industry, and I would certainly lay claim that you are one of those. You and I go back into at least the early 90s. I mean, I started my career in the late 80s. You started way before that.
Good.
You started as a young man in the early 70s, right?
That's right. Well, even before that, because I always say, since we lived on the yard side, I started at age 5. And I actually have some pictures in the panorama of the lobby of our office, where I'm handling a rope, tying a boat at age 5 with a very serious face.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. This is, for those that don't know, sometimes I have to be careful because I know what I know. And the Van Lent Shipyard is a legacy yard I've admired for decades. But the shipyard goes back to the mid-1800s, right? 1850-ish?
Yeah, 1848. We are celebrating our 176 years this year. So
wow.
it's they say the oldest yard. It still was in the same management family.
Multi-generational?
Yeah.
That's in the 5th generation for you.
Yeah. They say the 5th generation.
And your son was the 6th generation then?
Well, my son is not going to be involved in the yard because although he's very technical, he loves IT, he loves an organization, he's a hardworking guy, but it didn't go that way. So I never been pushed myself because I'm out of a family of 6.
Right.
And no one really got, the drive. So, I've got to do this. So
it's a love relationship.
Exactly.
You have no question about it. I got 3 boys, and none of the 3 of them. And I'm talking with Tristan right behind the cameras here. He likes what he's doing, helping his dad. He's still in school. But I don't see my boys going into the wonderful world of yachting. You never know. But still, I love the multi-generational part of this. It speaks volumes about how a legacy shipyard continues.
Yeah.
And so you did actually start taking a paycheck after age 5, and
yeah, after age 5, yes, of course. My father told me to work. Like on a Saturday, we would sweep the yard near the rails getting into the water. So it was always neat. So it was one thing, always have a neat yard. And I helped, that's from age 5 to do that. I was helping my mother serving tea at lunch breaks when the yard was still very much small. And then, of course, after my college, Dad said, well, now you can start in the company. I said, yes, but I'm interested in human beings, so I want to do social studies.
Okay.
So I did that for a couple of years until really that, the drive in me came closer to, I want to help run that yard and be involved. And I love boats. And I always say when people ask me, why are you still so much motivated for the yard at this age being an ambassador? I said, well, I love boats and I love people, but I love people more than I love boats. And that is what makes me to, have the passion and the drive to form teams, to motivate people. And then when I say people on the workshop floor, till the clients and everyone in between, to make sure that everyone in the whole process enjoys what we're all doing together. Building a boat, building a nice product. And, my drive has always also been to what I enjoy most is hosting people. And again, you're making sure that they are at ease and that people can see.
That's why you're successful, Dick.
So hospitality is really a driving force in my career of welcoming people, and whether that is a client or the DHL guy, we have a beautiful lobby in our office, and everyone is being served a coffee, and they can sit in that beautiful leather chair, including the DHL guy.
Isn't that something?
And
that's human. That's human. That's because everybody has value. And I've always said too, we are in a business of relationships, and the relationships start, like you said, to the gentleman that brings those goods in that you need, all the way to the client that's going to take his boat away from the dock one day.
Yes, and it's also so important when you contact a company that the telephone operator is friendly.
Yes.
And then when you go and see that company, that the receptionist is friendly.
First,
then you already have quite a few gains for that company.
Oh, totally. It's
good scores.
You miss that one in business, and you're missing something big. The last thing you want is somebody to walk away going, "Wow, that was a really rude experience I had coming into that business, whatever that business might be." Your shipyard is unique. Well, you have a couple shipyards, but the one I grew up around initially was on Keg Island.
Yeah, that's right.
That is something else. I mean, because that's it's a unique little spot in the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have expected to find a shipyard there.
No, that's right.
No, and I think you were a little size limited at that yard too.
Yes, we were limited because being a small island, being surrounded by beautiful lakes, but the canals were pretty small.
Yeah.
Bridges, give you an extra limitation besides the deepness of the water, of the canals. But we have managed to cope with it for quite some time. And in the 80s, we developed a plan to take one bridge away and put a new one in there with a wider pass-through.
Yep.
And we repositioned another column of a bridge so that the two bridges which really limit us to a beam of 10 meters could be increased to 12 meters. And that made us grow further in size. Those 2 meters in beam looks like
huge.
Small, but you can add 15, 20 meters of more length of boat and extra deck. So
right.
Before you know it, it's 50 to 100% more volume.
That's right.
And then everyone said, well, if the request for larger boats continues over the years, so I started to joke, well, then I hope a barge hits the locks in that city of Gouda, because that's the next bottleneck. And when I joked about this for a couple of times, I realized, well, maybe I should talk to the government and see whether they want to renew it or renovate it.
Anyhow.
After so many years, they've got to do some work on it. And they said, well, it's not that far out. I don't know, it's 5 or 10 years. We're going to do something. So, well, what we want is, whatever you want to do to it, if you renew it or enlarge it, can you create an extra 2 meters beam? So that way we went from 12 to 40 meters. But again, the 2 previous bridges, we had to redo again. That's about now 15 years ago.
Right.
So that made us grow to the size of just a little bit over 100 meters for car facility.
So, for instance, Madame Gou was built in the old facility?
Madame Gou was built in the Vries Makkum.
Was that De Vries?
But the Symphony was our largest, 102 meters.
Okay, I got that backwards then.
Yeah,
all right.
Symphony was built in Kaag.
In Kaag, okay.
And at the same time, we were always looking at what is the market going to do? Is the market going further? Is the demand for yachts still there? And, so this second yard was so long on our horizon already. Right. And then we finally invested in it to have another yard in Amsterdam.
Yes. We're going to talk about that a little bit because I was there last November with Tristan.
Yeah, you said so.
There's a lot of takeaways as an American yacht guy that I want to share with you and get your insights on. But before we go down that rabbit hole, and that's a rabbit hole, there's another one I think is interesting because when I first met you way back when, at that point in time in North America, I did the math. There was over 40 shipyards building what I call cruise serve yachts, 25 meters and larger.
Yeah.
You know, so you had to at least have a captain on board, maybe a captain and a first mate, or a captain and a stew. And of those, there's about 32 that were building over 33, 35 meters.
Yeah.
Dick, there's arguably less than 5 left.
Really?
Oh, yeah, no. It's tragic in so many ways, and I've watched it happen, and the reasons are varied. They're not universal. I've watched a lot of shipyards. You'll certainly appreciate this. Stretch, take some risks, and fail because either they didn't have the financial support or they didn't really understand the cost to build a yacht with increasing volume. So people think, oh, you go from 30 to 40 meters, it's just 10 meters. Yeah, it's not just 10 meters.
We know that. We know that.
No, it's and the technologies that go along with it and all of that. And, you know, it's a very labor intensive business. I don't know if there's another product in the world that takes the hand labor it takes to build a yacht. Can you think of one? No.
I wouldn't think, I mean, you know, like building development is taking time. It's usually because of legislation and work permits, building permits. But the actual construction of anything big is not 3-4 years like what we have to face nowadays.
So yeah, and it's all skilled labor too. This is not, you know, coming out of some trade school and going right to it, or, you know, coming off the street. These are very trained, skilled artisans that come into these shipyards to work. So we've lost so much of our boat building heritage capacity, and what we have left are a couple decent boat builders, and I'm happy to say some of them are doing okay. A couple of them are doing very well. And we've got some potential for some refit, although it's interesting enough, we just watched Feadship pull out of the shipyard in Savannah because of the desire to bring the refit work back to the Netherlands. Yeah. And it's a business decision, and probably for the Feadship fleet, not a bad decision. But it's an example of the challenges we face in North America. And I bring this up because I think it's fascinating. When you look at a country like the Netherlands, it's not a large country. It's got a fraction of the population that we have in the States, needless to say. Yeah. But you have built a marine infrastructure, a mariner's infrastructure, a shipbuilding infrastructure that's incredible. Yeah. It's like you are a shipbuilding nation, and I think that's it. You're a shipbuilding nation. You have got what you need, and you've preserved what you need so you can be successful. Yeah. Fair statement?
Yes, surely, yeah.
So I just put that on the table because I think it's interesting that we sit here and you just talk about how our industry is growing. And I'm sitting here as an American yachtsman saying, in my ambassadorship in the years to come, I'm wanting to find ways to promote building in the United States and how that works. And I think the model that happens in the Netherlands is one that we all should pay attention to. Because you start at the very beginning. You're with your apprenticeships, with the young people, the multi-generational people that are working in the same place that their father and grandfather have. Yeah. And I think that's the magic.
That's true. You know, the culture and then the historical things are so important. And that way you also get the passion and the motivation transferred from an elderly to a youngster, and very often from a father to a son.
Right.
And if there's no father and son relationship, there's always a senior who guides, you know, the new guys for 6, 7, 8 years before they are called qualified.
That's so true. That's so true. And that's, don't forget, sometimes the daughter comes in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know,
it's more often.
Well, that's the more opportunities, I think, with what's changing and how we build our vessels. You know, the things that are more interesting to young ladies are now becoming more available, whether it's interior or naval architecture or specialized design or specialized technology. So I think the opportunities for young people is unlimited when it comes to what we're doing here.
Yeah, certainly so. Yeah.
So, you're CEO of a company, you're making the decision, okay, we're going to build a new facility in Amsterdam. There's a lot that goes into that. Part of that is, how do you take your culture, your shipbuilding culture that's on the Kag Island, and transfer it to Amsterdam so that you keep the Van Lent culture going? Because you've got new employees, new infrastructure, new everything.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing that's not new is the brand and the managing directors, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, the distance between Kaag and Amsterdam is really only 15, 20-minute drive. So with regard to the workforce, there's not all new people. So we have a lot of people from the Kaag yard going to Amsterdam. And of course, you look a little bit where people live, but for the majority of the people, it's either a 10, 15 minutes drive that way or 10, 15 minute drive the other way. So that was not
Okay.
a non-issue, of course. But suddenly you enlarge, so we were hiring extra people in preparation of the new yard, which was even finished yet, to make sure we could do proper training, so that once the new ones would also go there, so that they've been acquainted with quality, with procedures, with the management, but also with the culture and create a passion for their new yard and passion for the product. So it was not just like overnight. You got people waiting and you're ready to start there. So it's been a long process and a long preparation to make sure that everyone is in its place. And it gave also lots of career opportunities for people who've been sitting in the same job for 10, 15 years, are overqualified sometimes for the job. But here there's another yard where you could,
scale.
Yeah, you could scale up, and you could use your qualifications to be, assistant manager or a manager or even, CEO.
Right. Even though.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it created a number of good job opportunities. And not saying that there was no challenge at all, but once you discuss the future, early enough with all of your team, particularly because human resources, and also give people who've been with you in like 20 years an opportunity to say, well, right there is another career opportunity.
That's right. And that's the whole, I think, magic in this, is that if you stay in it long enough, you create your own opportunities, you find where you fit.
Yeah.
And it is a type of business that you can grow up in and develop yourself as time goes on, because there's just limited resources, and your experience brings you your value.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
2019 you moved in that shipyard, 2018, somewhere around there?
Yeah, it's about 6.5 years ago. Yeah, 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the Queen was there.
Yeah, we had the Queen, and we had some laughs with her because she is actually very popular. She is from Argentina.
Right.
And, this lady, she conquered the hearts of the Dutch so quickly, because there was, Argentina in those days was a country which was being criticized quite a bit.
Right.
And today again, I just noticed.
Really?
And so she came from that Southern America country, and she really stole the hearts of the Dutch, because she, within half a year, she spoke broken Dutch. So that was her way of getting introduced.
Sure.
And she's a very lively lady. Mm-hmm. So we had contact with the royal family, also way before. And so when she opened the yard, we really enjoyed her drive. And she, from day one, she says, "Okay, I want to be there, but I just do not want to talk to the management only. I want to see the staff, and I want to walk around and shake hands." And
the Queen of the people.
Yeah, Queen of the people, rather than sitting in the platform and
in all her royalty, right? Yeah,
I'm a royalty. Yeah. So yes,
that was fun. That really is cool.
Great to have her.
Right. Right. And of course, the shipyard years ago gained the distinction of being a Royal Dutch shipyard, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. This is 2001. We got the royal appointment.
Right. I think that's cool. We don't have that in the States, and that's something that's, I think, unique and also part of the culture. Of course, if you're a yacht owner and you say, "Yeah, well, my boat was built by a royal shipyard," there's a little bit something there too, right?
I mean, it is like, what you call it, like another score on why do people come to your yacht.
Sure.
It's Dutch built, there's a lot of history, there's a lot of heritage, there's a lot of drive, there's quality and there's passion, and all adds something to it. And then also the royal appointment is again another score where it adds a little bit of value And I also got my personal royal appointment.
Orange.
Is that like an officer in the House of Orange?
Congratulations, that's fun.
So that became many years later.
You just brought up a memory. Many years ago, I had an opportunity to sit with Walter Huysman.
Oh, yeah.
And he was telling me about how Huysman became Royal Huysman.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was really an interesting piece from him. He had just built Juliet.
Juliet.
I had gotten a coffee table book. We were involved a little bit in that project. And he signed the book for me. That's a treasure now. And in that conversation, that's where that came up. And so here for the second time in my career, I get to sit with a managing director, CEO of a shipyard that got that distinction. Lucky am I. Let me talk about the shipyard real quick before I talk about some of your boats, because I think they're both equally interesting. And from my perspective, what I saw last November was eye-opening. And I just have to, first of all, say, good job. And as you said, from the moment I walked through the door, greeted warmly, walked up the stairs into like that open galley area where everybody congregates for lunches and coffee. And it was just so human. It was just so welcoming. It was so comfortable. And we walked out into the shed, and you have to help me. I could estimate, but you would know exactly. Your graving dock, how much length was there in that dock? How big is that?
It's in Amsterdam.
Amsterdam, yes.
It's 160 meters.
160 meters. You had a 70-some meter boat on the forward end of that graving dock. And there's a cofferdam. And you had like a 40-meter boat behind it. And that 40-meter boat looked like a tender. It was like, wow. Just was like, talk about perspective and size. And it's fully enclosed. It's heated. It's air conditioned. It's humidity controlled. You can paint in there. You can weld in there. You can do everything you need to do in there. You have catwalks, mezzanines that are on all levels. You can flood part of it or flood all of it.
Yes. That's right.
What an investment. And so this is what really impressed me. We finished that tour before we went to look at this little boat that you had just built, and walked out the back door into that wonderful November Dutch weather. And we walk around the corner, and there's this open property. And the gentleman that was giving me the tour says, this is where the next one's going. And it was like, wow. And he said, when that's done, we're looking at across the waterway for a refit only facility. That's an investment. That's confidence in your future. That's a really strong testimony to what you in the shipyard sees as the future of yacht building in the world. So how did you get there? How did you come to that decision that these are the investments we need to make, we are going to make?
Well, first of all, my statement was always, if you buy a Mercedes, you want to have it serviced by Mercedes, a Mercedes dealership, a Mercedes garage.
Sure you do.
With the Mercedes expertise and the engineers. So that, of course, was also valid for our product. And because of the fact that we didn't have the space and not every ship could come back from, say, Florida for any type of refit. So that in those days we were promoting, Savannah, we helped MB92 in Barcelona and a few more other yards around the world to have at least our expertise of how do I service. So for smaller refits and smaller jobs, we did it in combination with them, or we would fly out people to assist them. And that worked quite well, but it's still not like, you come back to the yard and it's the Mercedes engineers and the Mercedes equipment servicing your...
That's right.
So then, because of the fact that was a broader perspective of the 4 yards within Feadship, it was easier to accommodate a request for a refit than if you just have the one yard where, you always have like the 2 or 3 boats under construction in various stages to be able to continue in an efficient way. So you couldn't always fit in a yacht, not even for a paint job.
Right.
So,
it would be disruptive.
Yeah, it would be disruptive. So then we said, well, we have more space. We should maybe approach it more professional. And, like you said, probably allow just more space in one of the shipyards. So we got our efforts together, and if you look now how many boats we have, it's enormous.
It is.
And also the request for refits is there on a regular basis because you build so many boats.
I was just going to say.
And they all last more than 100 years.
As they should. Absolutely.
So, and where can they go? Because, there are not many facilities in the world. And it's like with nautical structure, you said there was 3 in those days. Mm-hmm. Well, there's more than 3 compared to, say, 30 years ago. But still, the output of yachts is so enormous.
It's mind-boggling in some ways. It really is.
And of course, being them bigger, it's also easier to take them back to the North Sea and take them back to the Mediterranean in spring.
Right.
So you use those winter months, particularly for doing the larger refits. Mm-hmm. And, we can always cope with extra capacity for doing a refit.
No, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And when you think about the fleet, I don't know how many boats you've got in the ocean right now. Do you have a number? How many boats have been delivered?
Well, I think we have 800 and something from the Van Lent Yard, 832 I think we are now, and 700 and so 15, but yes, 1,600 yachts.
That's incredible.
From small to...
Right. Well, and as you get in these larger yachts, the commercial class yachts, you do realize then you've got your 5-year survey, your 10-year survey, your 20-year special survey.
Yeah.
All of this stuff it requires a lot of infrastructure. The older boats, seal hull boats, you got to check plating thickness of the hulls. You've got to go through all the through hulls. There's major work the engines have to be oftentimes rebuilt, sometimes replaced. Millions of euros worth of work goes back into these boats to keep them going. Yeah. And you have to have a place to bring these boats to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Right. So that's a big wow. Yeah.
Certainly, yeah.
Suddenly. Wake up one day and go, we got a real fleet out there. Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's amazing. Tell us a little bit about some of these boats, because we'll end on the one that I spent some time on last November and everybody's talking about right now, which is, wow, what an incredible boat that is. But listen, I saw some beautiful boats early on, these gorgeous, what I would today call classic Feadship.
Yes, yeah.
Things that really stood out. I remember hearing about and seeing Ecstasy, and that's, a pretty fast boat. Yeah. What stands out in your mind? Of all the boats you've built, where do the biggest challenges come from?
Well, you mentioned Ecstasy. I remember those days when we were confronted with a request for, high speed, 32 knot motor yacht of 86 meters. At the same time, there was the request for being a very calm ship, so noise level, very much down. And particularly in those days, adding weight was still the way to solve or avoid vibrations,
right.
And do something about the acoustic levels. So it's adding weight, which is controversial.
You can't go fast.
You can't go fast. No, exactly. So, but we had a weight scale surrounded by that boat. So everyone who brought new materials onto the boat, it has to be weighed, and it was indicated in the profile of the ship where it went, section 16.
So all your stability, all of your calculations are exact.
Yeah. And we had our specialist in weight control, and was a naval architect, a lady. So it was kind of nice to, say 20 years ago. And we have a lady in charge of the weights, in where does the weight go, and
breaking that gender bias.
Yeah, so I love that. So if you would be a carpenter and you would come with your tools and the material you install, when you return, the tools would be weighed again, so that it's deducted, so that you actually knew what kilograms were on what position in the yacht. So to monitor, also to learn for future projects. And of course, the trial week was tremendous. It came to its speed, and the acoustic levels were all within the contract. Yeah, that was quite an achievement. And if you then
was all the furniture on when that was done? Everything done?
Yeah, everything done. Yeah.
Because I was involved back when John Staluppi built Octopussy, and I remember that when they did their trials, and God bless them, that was an amazing boat they built. It was stripped bare. There was nothing on board, right? Yeah. And it's a funny story. I was involved in a recent version of Octopussy where the owner wanted to refit the boat. Ultimately got taken to Dubai to be done. But I remember walking on board, and here's Octopussy, and it's already had a couple other refits, and the client says, I want to keep this a fast boat. And I walk into the main salon, there's a baby grand piano sitting there.
Yeah.
And I looked at that, and I'm looking at the yacht designer that brought me onto the project. I said, can we change that out for an electronic keyboard? And they're like,
same weight?
Same weight. I mean, yeah, it was
quite a weight saving, I think.
Right. No, it's real. So that one was a real challenge. No, when you have a client ask you to do that, you look them in the eye and say, yeah, no problem, let's do it. Or you're like, are you kidding me? I mean, maybe, I don't know, we can try. I mean, how do you get to that point where you're like, we are going to do this?
Well, it was again a further achievement in getting an order with a larger size than before, because I think the length of the previous boat before that was 65 meter.
Okay.
In our yard, so the jump from 65 to 86 is huge.
Yeah.
So that was a challenge as well, and of course we had beautiful dry docks and good equipment, and we had plenty of staff. So, we thought it was, of course you always take a risk in if you do something special, but we felt comfortably, doing so. And it was good to feel that you achieved all the goals.
I can imagine.
All the contractual goals.
I can, and the customer's happy.
And the customer's happy, yeah.
So here's a question for you. There's a balancing act there too, right? So you can't carry so much fuel bunker that you're carrying extra tons of weight, but at the same time you got gas turbine engines that are going to go through fuel at a prodigious rate. How long can they run fast before they deplete? I mean,
well, if they would do 32 knots, so that's full speed.
Full speed.
They could only cruise a day and a half. But on the other hand, if you go 40 knots, 50 knots, you could do 7,000 miles. So,
right.
So it has both options.
Right. You don't have to run all the engines.
No.
That's fun.
Yeah.
What other projects come to mind that you think back on and go, wow, we really did that?
Well, breakthrough, of course, the recent boat, but you probably heard all about that. That's another breakthrough.
Yeah.
It's another challenge. Again, a larger size than we've ever built before. So that is, of course...
So you brought that up, so I'll comment on that, because when we were invited to your shipyard last November, we were blessed. We got an amazing tour. I hope I don't get the gentleman in trouble that gave us a tour, because we saw pretty much all the boat. And I remember putting my hands on that cryogenic hydrogen tank and going, wow. And then it was explained to me that challenges with the hydrogen fuel is that when it burns, it's invisible. You don't know that it's burning unless you have a heat monitor, or it catches something else on fire.
Crazy,
And that's the wrong way to find out that you've got hydrogen burning.
So you lose your bed.
Well, that's not a good thing, right? But you know what? So we all agree, 119 meters, it's a gorgeous boat. Amazing technology. Of course, I went back into the tender garage areas and the beach club areas, because that's near and dear to me. Saw all the watertight doors and the cranes and things that would resonate with a guy like me. You know what really resonated with me, though? 2 decks of crew, and the amount of crew lounge, crew space, the cabins for the crew look like small hotel suites. And the whole conversation in our industry right now that's really relevant is crew health on board. There's too many horror stories we've all heard about what happens with these boats when you have crew confined in tight spaces for long periods of time, different cultures mixed together. What could possibly go wrong, right? And one of the challenges is building a boat that accommodates crew holistically, humanly, right? So you're not in just 2 square meters of space, and that's where you're working 18-hour days and get 6 hours of off time, and you're confined with somebody you can probably barely stand in a small space. And you can do Pilates on the floor in your crew cabin, or you can come out in this very spacious crew accommodation area. And I thought, wow, for the first time, of course it's a big boat, you've got room to work with, but still it's like, here we go. Pay attention industry, because you look at how Breakthrough was built and how much accommodation and how much infrastructure was provided for crew, and I think that was the most human, beautiful things I've seen in new yacht construction. I mean, I saw the owners' areas, and I saw the guest areas, and it's a beautiful boat. You should be, you're proud of that build, and it's a stunning build. But that was my interesting takeaway. I thought of everything I saw, that crew accommodation was pretty remarkable.
Confined spaces. I never forget the story. I was out traveling in the south of France. I was talking to a bosun on the aft deck, just social chat, and he says, Dick, I have to apologize. I got to get someone from the airport. It's a new stewardess. I said, well, good luck with her. And he started to smile. She says, I hope she's ugly. I said, why? Well, she has to sleep with me in that small cabin.
Well, and there you have it.
He didn't want any jealous.
No, of course not. And that is part of the problem, is because, you have only so much space on a boat.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, the owner's got an expectation. You can run this boat, and it's going to be a wonderful. I talk about what I call the 3 pillars, really sacred pillars of our industry. The owners, of course, because without the owners, we don't have an industry. Yeah. So we want them to have a good experience, to be supported in their investments and in their passion to be yachtsmen and sustain our industry. Second one that I think is truly the crew. You take the crew out of the equation, boats don't go anywhere, the experience the owner has is not good. And if the owner doesn't have a good experience, they can go charter a boat occasionally. They can spend their money someplace else. They don't have to build a boat. They don't have to own a boat. Yeah. It's a stupid investment. It's not an investment. It's a passion. It's a love.
We should all take good care of everyone, of all the stakeholders, So
that's right.
The crew is important. They need to run. I mean, what I tell about the operations of the yard to keep everyone motivated and happy is the same with the crew.
That's so true. That's so true. And it's a top-down thing. If the captain's got his program in place and he's hired the right way, and you've paid attention to the culture you've built, you're going to have a great experience. The owner's going to have a good experience.
And have a crew of usually different nationalities. That it's better than have just 2 nationalities where the French might fight the British. But if you have 3 or 4, I've heard it so often that if there is a Filipino crew as well on board, 5 or 6, they do a Filipino night, and the next week they do a French night, or an American night.
That's right.
Or an American meal.
So it is. It's a multicultural industry, and it's a multicultural experience on these boats. And that's, when you hear of a crew that's all South African, you hear really quickly, you don't want to do that one again. They're great crew individually, but then you get the cultures coming together, and so pay attention to those details.
It's the respect for the other culture that keeps the morale high.
Thank you. I agree. I agree. So after building something like Breakthrough, I mean, do you see that as becoming something that's going to be repeated? Is this going to have a trickle-down effect to the industry, or is this just a proof of concept that was done?
No, it is a proof of concept is one thing, but you also look at the future and you start developing. We got the whole industry, even the cruise line companies looking at what we achieved, because this is a broad interest of all nations, and emissions, etc. We're all looking at it. If you already see that passenger ships cannot go into the 300-kilometer in Norway because it has to be zero emission. Well, that is already achieved, and we can do the same. So, and that's only the early start of developments which will be taken on for the next 5 or 10 years.
Right.
And you see a lot of people follow. And I think that's
right.
Now, being ahead is important, of course.
You did that in collaboration with the fuel cell technology people.
Yes, and of course the owners were also pushing it.
Right.
So it's not like we're going to try it and sell it to the client.
Right.
There was like a team effort.
That's beautiful.
Let's try and do something, and that's very nice if you get the drive and passion of an owner to be eco-friendly and show the world. I've done this on my yacht, kind of thing.
So would it be fair to say, because when I'm out and about, and particularly talking to people that are not in the large yacht industry, and they point to these boats and they say, stupid, ostentatious use of money, horrible use of money, and I look at them, now that's my perspective, and I say, wait a second. The technologies that you enjoy right now, whether it's EV technologies or battery technologies or other technologies in your world, they started by high net worth individuals taking some risks.
Oh, yes.
And it's only by having a boat like Breakthrough where you can have a collaboration of shipyard owner, technology provider, all sharing in the risk, that you're able to prove the technology. And that's the starting point for what I call the trickle down, where now you can scale that from a 119 meter boat to a 60 meter boat, and maybe eventually a 40 meter boat, and maybe one day a 20 meter boat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But how else do you get there? You're not going to be building 20 meter boats testing this kind of technology necessarily.
No, that's right. It takes the big money to have it get started.
That's right.
And so you either should do this in combination with the industry as a whole, but that's always difficult because of competition. But if you have the driving force of a client bringing in money and also taking the risk together with the yacht to be able to do that, then you create, a better environment or a better world,
right,
which is taking on along further. And
that's right. So you would agree then that yachting is going to be, it used to be kind of lip service, going green, let's try to get there. But now it's reality. We can see zero emission boats.
Yeah, very much so. And we always have this concept model at a boat show where you could see 6, 7, 8, 9 developments of things we're going to take care in the future. 1 or 2 will be immediately taken into reality.
Right.
And if you don't show 6, 7, or 8, you're not thinking further ahead.
Right.
So I always do my little speech saying, well, there's a number of things which is still not really possible, but, maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, we can do it.
Share that with us. What do you see? What might be that?
Well, like for instance, we have been looking at glass structures a long time of, people request more windows because of the view. Years ago, we already installed panorama windows in the bottom of our boats. Savannah, we had 1 or 2 more that done this. And then we came to this point where there was a request for a complete glass site from deck to deck. So from deck to deck, no structure, but only glass.
Wow.
So we've done a lot of investigations together with the supplier of the glass. And we came to the conclusion it had to be 8 centimeters. And then that way you could support, but it also needs to have the flexibility because a boat always moves, and a boat needs to move, otherwise it breaks. So to have the way to install it, and that was actually created by a client who turned up later, I want everything flush. And I can't mention any names, but this is all very flush, What's his name again?
Yeah, I think I know who we're talking about. Absolutely. I didn't think that boat was very pretty, but it was his boat.
But that was a request.
Right.
So we said, okay, let's further develop this, what we have started before. And our aim and mission is always to have the whole company looking at what can we think of, we should do research and development next year. So every department of every company within Feadship can produce a list of things. What do I want to have investigated? And then we put a budget around and say, well, okay, we do this, we do that, maybe we do this next year. So everyone is always thinking of how can we improve our product.
So when your engineering department picks up the phone and calls Lloyd's Register for classification approval, they're probably going, oh, not this again.
Well, to tell you the truth, Lloyd's was really approaching us when they were installing that 100A1 class, good 20 years ago. They wanted to do the first boat with us because, they rely on a good quality company and support by naval architects and good managers and fitters to be able to do that right. So they could have more comfort in telling other yachts when the 100A1 was really, incorporated in a new system.
Good point.
That it was, well treated and well proved before it has to go to the whole world as their new standard.
Makes sense. So you got a collaborative relationship.
Yes, collaborative relationship. That's how you.
That's good. And DeVoot's a big part of that as well, I'm
yes,
sure.
DeVoot, of course, your naval architects. And there again, we have a lot of history as
Yeah,
well. And,
no question about it. I
yeah.
mean, that's the fun part of this. When I really think about the history that exists, you got the Van Lent family, you got the Ackerboom family, the De Vries family coming in, you got De Voet involved.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's, if those that know, it's really an interesting collaborative relationship. You know, I remember a conversation with Tom De Vries. I said, yeah, we compete with the Van Lent, you know, because the De Vries, you know, you got your own brand pride, friendly competition.
But
at the end
wrong with that.
But at the end of the day, you're flying under the same banner.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we share the results sometimes. Yeah. Well, we even do this openly. I mean, I never forget when we started as Van Lent gluing teak decks, and De Vries said, that's never going to work. Okay, you know, you don't do it yet, but then we did it for 10 years, then of course they took over. And that is, again, sharing without that you have to have both the risk of where it could go wrong, because you don't want to have 20 boats around floating where after 10 years it all comes loose, you know, the decks are coming up. So
it's funny, I was talking to somebody not so long ago that mentioned, they were talking about how they thought the paintwork out of Van Lent was, or the De Vries was like the best of the best, but the teak work out of Van Lent was like top of everything. You know, you want the very best teak work. Van Lent's got that. It's funny how they kind of compartmentalize. Course, okay, you know. This skill set is really, you know,
it's a lot of competition. Also, sometimes driven by a captain and say, well, yeah, but I've got a De Vries, or I've got a Van Lent. Yeah, this is better here.
Let's wrap with this thought. You got a huge fleet out there. We talked earlier about some of what I call the classic Feadships. A good friend of mine, and I'm sure a good friend of yours, Ted McCumber.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, thank you, Ted, for helping this conversation happen today. And one of these days, we'll get you sitting here. He doesn't want to do it. But he was telling me about some smaller boats that Feadship is developing for Feadship clients, but also the Feadship Classic fleet, and trying to restore and maintain that. Is that part of the vision of what you guys are doing now with the new shipyard and, you know, maintain that legacy?
Yeah, we, of course, we have a heritage club whereby
that's me what I was thinking.
We have a number of meetings. You know, we had this sail event in Amsterdam where every 5 years the whole world comes to Amsterdam with, you know, the three masters, the tall ship, the six masters, and it's a wonderful event of 5 days. And of course, we have 35 plastic boats of Feadships, and anything between, I think the biggest was 34 meters. The ex-royal yacht for the Dutch royal family, and others were open boats from 6 meters.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Wow.
But, you know, they were all there. So yes, we want to keep our heritage alive, and we organize a number of things throughout the years. And they love to share the things they do, the maintenance they do, like an exchange of, oh, how did you solve this, or how did you solve that? Of course.
Yeah,
it's just lovely to see them all communicating
the interaction,
with each other.
Right.
The WhatsApp group is
and pride and ownership.
Yeah, exactly. Pride and ownership, and what they do, and how they use their boats, and that's fun. Yeah,
that does sound wonderful. It really does. I see it here in the States too. Here in the States, we're not in the States, Rick, but back in the States, because there's a whole fleet of Feadships over there.
Yeah.
And you know, it's. I know the American client is a big driver of the brand, which is kind of cool to imagine that we actually have our own DNA influence into the shipyards in that way. Yeah. But if you spend time in South Florida particularly, but there's other parts of the country where you'll see large groups of Feadships, and you'll see the older boats, and you'll see boats that are, you know, more modern, but what you do see is that brand, the Feadship brand, and it shows up again and again. No, that
feels good.
It should. You guys have really accomplished a lot. I think you've really set the standard for our industry. Everybody does compare themselves to a Feadship at some level, some way. So I would say congratulations. You have an amazing career, Dick, and I love your reinvention. I don't use that retirement word. I've been asked the same thing. I'm not retiring, but the reinvention, the ambassador, brand ambassador, the goodwill ambassador. And I just have to say, over the years, it's been a pleasure to call you a friend in the industry and to have known you for so long.
Well, Rick, thank you very much. I enjoyed doing the interview with your son.
Yeah.
And look forward to see the outcome of it.
Yeah,
And,
no,
I
it'll
hope we can satisfy Ted.
We will satisfy
the
Ted.
results.
Yes, no, I think Ted's good that way, and I look forward to future opportunities to cross paths with you and keep up with how you're doing. And
whenever you want to come to the yard at some stage,
have a cup of coffee.
You're welcome.
Yeah. No, it's a real pleasure. It's a lot of hospitality, and I just thank you very much for your time and for your contribution.
Good.
All right.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Okay, Rick. All the best.
If your brand belongs in the heart of the yachting world, this is where it happens. Yachting International Radio reaches over 1 million yachting professionals and enthusiasts every month, with 77 million impressions, 220,000 social followers, and 74,000 podcast subscribers. Our hosts are insiders, crew, captains, CEOs, trusted voices shaping the industry. This is targeted, high-impact advertising in a luxury niche. Visit yachtinginternationalradio.com/advertise. Your audience is already listening.